It's all right, young man. I think that I am Louisa Lamy McGuire. That's right. That's right. Ho, ho, ho. I haven't seen that one in a long time. I don't look like that anymore. Oh, my. I was born in October 1803 in the Ouachita territory of the state of wildness, really, because we weren't a state yet. In fact, we didn't even belong to the United States. I was born October 6th, 1803, in Fort Miro. And my parents were very happy that we didn't belong to the United States. Jean Field had come up the Mississippi to the Red to the Black to the Ouachita by flatboat, and he brought with him a handful of experienced soldiers, a 4-pound cannon, and his wife. And that was in the 1780s. He didn't much like the inhabitants of the area. He called them vicious and unprincipled. Well, they probably were. But in the 1790s, he negotiated enough with the governor, Esteban Miro, in order to build a fort, a stockade, that could protect these settlers in time of native uprising, perhaps. And just a little later, in the late 1790s, my parents came in. They were French. And they came along with a Maison de Rouge. And the Maison de Rouge brought with him artisans, clockmakers, and gentlemen farmers, of which my parents were some. They took a plantation, and everybody wanted to donate the name Louis after the deposed French king, you understand? And so, Louisiana, and my older brother, was named Louis, and of course I am Louisa. You didn't know, did you, that Louisville Avenue and Lamy Lane came from my family, Louisa Lamy McGuire. My parents could not look down the road too far. They probably were shocked when, after I was born in October 1803, Louisiana Territory was sold to President Jefferson, and the territory became part of the vagabond nation, the United States. My mother. And a little further down the road, they probably would have been shocked, and were shocked, at least my mother, who was still alive, when I married one of that vagabond nation, an American. But that's part of a little bit later story. I wanted to tell you about our territory. Around 1804, the area had approximately 400 white settlers and 50 or 60 slave settlers. And we were part of the young, growing Fort Miro population who, when we needed an excuse to get together, traipsed on down to the Ouachita River to see our neighbors take their animal pelts or their produce, loaded on a flatboat, and let the voyageurs help them float on down the rivers to New Orleans and sell their goods. Well, think about it. They sold the goods, they sold the flatboat, and they walked back. Enterprising, with the cash on their person somewhere. Back from New Orleans to our area in the Ouachita. It was a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful area, prosperous. John Fio had retired to his own plantation and grew melons and pumpkins and all kinds of produce. But a big change came in our lives when I was, 17 or 18. We had gathered at the river expecting to hear fiddle and see the voyageurs, and there came, puffing and chugging up the river, 1819 or so, there came the first steamboat, and it was the James Monroe, captained by Captain Palfrey. Well, we were all celebrating, and Henry Bree was in his cups, wasn't he, Annie? Yes, indeed he was in his cups, and he raised one of those cups and said, "Let's rename the community Monroe." And everybody voted to do that very thing. We became Monroe, and we became, the west side of the river became Trenton, and Trenton benefited a little bit more from the steamship trade than Monroe. But something else happened in my life. Well, the same year and approximately the same month as the James Monroe arrived at a Ouachita dock, here came a young American Kentuckian doctor. His name was Robert McGuire. He was interesting and interested. And so my parents said, all right now, and I married Robert McGuire. Robert McGuire wasn't given to romanticism, but he wrote the steadiest journal of days of the Ouachita area. And even though he wasn't that romantic, we had a good life on the banks of Bayou Désert. And we enjoyed our children. But you know, death is ever present, and death was ever more present to us than to you, probably. I remember a story a hunter told me in that time period of seeing an Indian woman outside her village in the Lake Catahoula area, leaning on what appeared to be a pile of sticks. And she was wailing and mourning in the deepest accents of pain ever heard. It turns out that the pile of sticks was the grave of her son, and she mourned him at sundown every evening. I understand that woman's pain because, you see, Robert and I, although we had 5 children, none of them lived. Louis died at age 8, and Mary Louise at age 5, and Felicity, little Felicity, at age 3. And Angela was only 1 month, my angel. And then there was Robert Allen. He lived till he was 29. But he passed away 1856, age 29. And on the tombstone is, "Here lies the parent's last hope." I believe that broke his father's heart and mine, but his father did not live long after, only 6 years. In 1872, my Robert, dear Robert, passed away, and his funeral really was quite something. Many, many kind words and speeches were written, and there was a wonderful plaque that later became 2 wonderful plaques. But wait, let's not end this with sadness. I have something to say, and it's important. I made my will in 1881, just before I passed away. It was a well taken care of will with the prominent citizens of our community sitting on the committee to see it and to approve it and to witness it. L.M. Surgener was there. I know, Annie, you don't prefer him or her, but here is what I wanted to say to you. I left my Robert's law office and his law library books to the town of Monroe and the current mayor. I don't think it was you, Mayor Forsyth. I forget. I left them to become the basis, the genesis for a public library. Well, it took a good long time for that to happen. In 1916, A.A. Gumby was looking around, poking around in documents, and found the bequest. And I had died in 1882. Well, he went to the little building on Wood Street, went inside, and found that it was a repository for coal. That lit a fire under him, shall we say. And a committee was formed to institute my bequest as a public library, and now you are sitting in one of 10 public libraries in our parish. Be grateful.